This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. Therapy, very important, always has been, but now it's so much more widely accepted when somebody says, yeah, I'm going to go speak with my therapist. It's almost like, whoa, they're taking care of themselves, their mental health, and it's applauded, thankfully, now. Now let's go a layer deeper. She offers psychotherapy services to many of all ages, but what's different is it involves art, expressing ourselves through art, letting whatever is inside come out. And that's the beginning of her therapy with people. And learned a lot in the last number of shows that we've done. And we've got her back here today. She is our professional of the year, and she is Barbara Robertson back on the program. How are you doing?
Very well. Thanks, Steve. Always happy to be here and happy to talk about art therapy and using art media as an expressive tool. And that may not always result in images that invite you to put them in a frame and hang them up in the wall, but they actually can accomplish much more than adding some lovely decor to a room. They can help us to experience our feelings in a way that allows the feelings to be contained, become finite, kind of smaller than we are in a way. My experience often with difficult emotions growing up was that if I let them out, they were just going to keep expanding and expanding until I was just sort of obliterated by this massive emotion that I imagined pouring out of me and unstoppably. But oddly enough, that's not really how it works. Most emotions, they contain a certain kind of energy that stirs us in some direction, that expands. And if we can recognize it's happening and allow the feeling to be experienced in us, to bring our awareness to it without judging it or trying to stop it or fight it, it actually will collapse after it expands. So it expands to a certain point, gets our attention, and then it's done its job. So it relaxes and floats away. And that's done, message delivered.
So last time we got together, you shared artwork with children, I believe children and teens,
Yep.
and insightful. Wow. And there was a lot to be seen there in terms of you could tell what they were feeling, how they were purging those emotions and such. And we got right to the point where we're going to look at some of the things that you've done, and we ran out of time. So can we pick up and look at your artwork?
Sure. I've chosen four kind of abstract images that I've created. Excuse me just a moment.
Hmm.
um, and I began to create these images with paint that was left over on palettes after clients had come in and done some painting of their own.
Hmm.
And I began to really be tempted by these paints that were left because they came in color combinations that I myself might not have thought to put together. And so they were kind of creatively stimulating for me. Oh, look at these together. What could I do with these? And I just began to kind of use a wide palette knife that's kind of like a spatula and spread them around, juxtaposing next to each other, overlapping on a page, kind of depending on the mood I was in at the time, time in between clients, or if I could save the paints for a while, cover them up. And, when I did have
Hmm.
time, I could play with it. So I'm going to show you the first one.
Sure.
And I don't know, maybe since you haven't seen it before, you could describe it for listeners that don't have a screen. And we just kind of fill the screen with it.
Yeah. And it's very clear on screen. It's an abstract. I'm going to say a lot of what I think is described as jewel colors.
Okay. Yeah.
So we've got some teals in there. We've got a certain shade of blue, a little bit of yellow popping in, some browns as well, some purple. Um, a lot of circular motion with the palette knife, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Um, Nice movement and nice blending of the colors as well. Um, but I can't tell you what you were thinking when you came up with that. So what was there an intent?
Well, I was going to say, I probably can't tell you what I was thinking either, because what I was really doing was responding to the impulse that seeing the colors on the surface were giving me. And just looking at it without actually remembering doing it, what it's telling me is that I wanted little bits of color in a lot of places because the strokes are a little bit choppy. There's no really long application. There's no stretch of color that goes from one edge to the other. They're all relatively small, and then another one on top or right next to it, overlapping a little, but having some space to show its clear self too. And so it was done pretty quickly, I'm guessing, just from how the strokes are. Maybe with pauses between adding another color.
But the
Sometimes
colors work well together.
they do, don't they? And
They
again,
really do.
I would not have been likely to choose this color combination because it's sort of a almost a contrast between those jewel colors that you mentioned and kind of earth colors or nature colors with the
Yes,
brown and green. And the green is kind of in both camps.
very
So it
much.
does make a nice overlap. So, what do you see in terms of what you might identify as the energy level in this image?
I would say there's a lot of positive energy. I'm just going to speak off the top of my head.
Sure.
I detect positive energy, but I detect careful energy. For
Okay.
for example, um, if we're in a situation with somebody else, being careful about where my energy is going to go. It's there, but it looks like there's a cap. You were intentional of not overdoing it. You were just being very careful of being in a certain range of energy, if you will. Or
I get,
positive, but at a certain point.
yeah, yeah. And can you identify anything about what tells you that?
The colors are all very much in the same tonal value.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to say they're not bright, but they call it a shade muted. You could have went brighter. But you
That's
did,
true.
but you
Yeah.
didn't. There's a little bit of yellow in there that adds some vibrance, but it seems as if you were capping. You were capping what you were doing.
I think I would agree with you. Yeah. So it's got a certain element of freedom, but also some
Discipline, discipline.
maybe discipline. Yeah. Some
Yeah,
it's regimented a little bit.
yeah, and not
It's
in a bad way. There's no
no,
negative, nothing.
no,
No.
really not. But it's kind of there's a consistency across the design.
Is that you in general? When this is the first time I've ever seen something you've
No,
done.
not really, not really. And I'll show you
Hmm.
the next one to
Hmm.
give you an idea of how different I can be.
Hmm. Okay.
So
So
this is another one done in the same way.
And this is now we have very long strokes. They feel like they're all somewhat connected. There's bright orange, there's some blue with that, some yellows as well. This even feels much more freer and more abstract than the last one. Interestingly, the paper that you used, almost like parchment paper, or watercolor paper, where the edges are ripped. You didn't need to do that. Why'd you do that?
I wanted to do that to kind of create a frame around the movement
Mm,
and get away from that sort of arbitrary right angle corner
yeah.
kind of perception that we kind of believe
A
that
boundary. We have a
art should
boundary.
adhere to. Right. So I wanted to kind of free this one to have chosen its own boundaries by where the colors landed on the page rather than by where the edges of the page were.
I get a feeling of heat. Could be, lava, fire, that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, could be that red is pretty intense and it's the most dominant color on the page. And I think kind of I see flow there
Yep.
in the way that it's circulating around and through the page. And then the darker blue seems to be doing a little bit of containing of that dominant red movement.
Do you feel, Barbara, when somebody creates any kind of art, that it's not by accident? It's not, well, I'm just going to take the brush, I'm going to put it right here. No, psychologically, there's a reason for everything. It's not just, let me just slap some color on here. No, it's all intentional.
Well, I really do believe so. And if you
Mm.
read anything much about neuroscience, there's a theory that we're only conscious of about 20% of what we're doing.
I even hear it's less than that. It's like 10%, some say.
Okay, could be even less than that. And the rest of it is being driven by our subconscious, which wants to be heard, but it doesn't like to speak in a language. It's much more connected to our right hemisphere functioning, which has to do with emotion, space, dimension, movement, kinesthetics,
Mm.
all those kind of non-quantifiable experiences that we have that we
Yeah,
can't, we can't organize or order or rank or make a hierarchy or, put them in a express, table.
sure.
Um, so this is one that's got a lot of, I would maybe use the word turbulence in it.
Yeah, I would go with that. And do you
Go with
recall
that?
your state of mind, frame of mind when you did it?
As I'm looking at it now, I think I was really excited with these colors. What I also was enjoying in this one, as I'm looking at it now, I'm also kind of seeing that there's more depth to it than in the other one. The other one was fairly kind of adhering to one plane that the
Yeah,
colors on.
I
And
agree with
this
you.
this one looks like you could sort of go swimming in there if you had a, anti-lava suit on.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
without a doubt. It almost has a galaxy kind of feel where the blue in the middle and around, it looks like we could look into that where the
exactly.
yellow, I'm sorry, the orange with the yellow is more in the foreground.
Right, right. And
Hmm.
so there's some depth and some also some containment for it, but containment that's more expansive. So another one that is a little bit swirly is this one. And this may be a little
Yeah, we could
different.
see, definitely
Can
could
you
see
see
it.
it? Okay.
This is
So
radically different than
radically
anything.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. The color is there's a large area of black here. And then I don't know if you could see, but the other colors have a metallic kind of reflectiveness to them.
Yes.
There's a gold and a sort of a teal, a violet, and a deeper blue. And they all seem to be sort of coming out of or surrounding that black.
I almost get a feeling, my initial look was, whoa, well, what's going on there? This is dark. This is dark. But
Yeah.
now I'm seeing it differently. It almost reminds me of dusk.
Ah, yeah. Nightfall.
Yeah,
Where it's not that dark in the whole sky, but you can see that it's
right. But I also wonder if you were looking at the sky and it was just past sunset, you would see essentially what's there outside of the black area. And then, so I wonder what is the black, the hint that, night is coming or there's something else, a storm brewing. I'm not really sure.
what I kind of respond with when I see it is there's a purpose to darkness so that we can recognize light.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's in that contrast, at dusk or dawn, that we really kind of get the full impact of, wow, the
Yeah.
sky is dark. And then in the other side of the sky, we're beginning to see the moonlight, maybe, or stars are showing up. And it's, it's kind of, I think, affirming in a way. The darkness in itself doesn't need to be scary or negative
Or dark.
or dark. That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, it can be something that we celebrate, and this image actually reminded me of a time when I guess it was in college, and I went to college in a town in the Midwest that was surrounded by cornfields, and the soil in those fields was like glacial deposit over millennia. So it's some of the darkest dark brown, black earth color that I've seen anywhere.
Hmm.
And we wanted to go out into one of those fields to experience what real darkness felt like because, there's so much light pollution everywhere.
Yeah.
So we drove a few miles out of town, and there was one place that was kind of a rise, and there was a tree near the edge of the road. So it was a good kind of landmark. And we hopped out of the car and we just kind of strode. I think there were about six of us, good friends. We strode out into the field, and it didn't take long before we could not see each other or anything else. And that
Hmm.
experience of being in profound darkness and yet still being and knowing that there were others there with us was, for me, it was very moving experience.
There's life in the dark.
There's life in the dark.
Yeah.
There truly is life in the dark. That's a beautiful way of putting it, Steve.
I enjoy dusk. Like, where was I last night? Was having dinner, a little tavern with my friend, a couple of friends, and I was thinking to myself, "Wow, it must be dark out by now." And I turned my head and look out the window, which wasn't where we were, and I'm like, "Ah, yeah, it's not dark yet." Not that there's anything wrong with it being dark, but I just love that time of day, and especially more as we get closer to summer, we have
Oh,
more
yeah, as the days
daylight.
get longer, and you do get surprised by that once in a while. And
Yeah,
you're like, oh, yeah, it's not pitch dark before you go out. You get to see some transition. You get to
right.
have this sense of, okay, we're moving from now until then. Yeah.
It's almost as if the dusk, as you get closer to summer, you get more daylight, is extended and you get to
Yes.
enjoy it even more because it takes longer, I guess, for the sun to set. Just
Yeah.
a cool time. And birds are still
Yeah.
singing. It's not like
That's
they've,
right.
they're singing first thing in the morning. I heard recently, this is just random, from an animal communicator. I know that, and we'd love to talk about energy in a moment, but she has studied this and studied others that birds sing just because they want to sing. It's not a mating call. It's not,
That's
food
awesome.
over here.
Yeah.
No, they sing because they're just happy and they want to sing.
That's cool. I got a
Right?
voice. Let me use it. Yeah. I love
Yeah,
it.
I never knew that. Um, let's talk about energy. Now,
Okay.
yeah, where do you want to begin with that?
So I've got one more image here that I'm just going to show you close up because you can kind of see that it's kind of choppy. This one makes me think of choppy water when the wind is blowing and the waves are just kind of flipping up a little bit. It's got a lot of small movements in it, but not a lot of those big swoopy movements like the one with red and blue had.
Sure. And all very much in the same tonal family of greens, teals. This one probably is the closest in uh, tone and
Yeah, yes.
complementary colors than anything we've seen so far. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing water though. I feel
Oh,
like
okay. What do you see?
I'm inside a bush.
Ah,
And
okay.
I'm looking out and seeing some, blue, maybe blue sky, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing it from the other way out as opposed to looking at a tree, bush or whatever
Right.
from the outside
Right.
in.
Right. Interesting. Okay. And how would you describe the energy of this one?
This one's interesting. I'm not 100% sure how to describe it. I don't want to say turbulent, maybe conflicted, because there's a lot, many different strokes and many different colors. Um, Not bad energy, but there is a certain type of energy, and I can't put my finger on it. Got to be very honest.
It's sometimes it's really just not that clear. I see some kind of swooping in the brighter colors. There's some gold and orange there. There are little streaks. And then the blue and green is more maybe just background almost, just kind
Hmm.
of like a backdrop. Yeah, so more than one kind of energy. So what I want to invite our listeners to try is to imagine some kind of energy, whether it was what we were describing as the energy in one of those images, or some kind of energy that you've experienced when you've seen something that was really striking to you, an image that really was standing out somehow, whether it was a sunset that was awesome or some style, starlight, or even a really cool car. I was driving down the road and I saw a Maserati go by, and I was like,
Hmm.
what? So cool. And that's a whole different kind of energy than looking at a sunset. So imagine that energy could be compacted into a little sphere, and that sphere is going to come and float right over the top of your head.
Hmm.
And then if you're open to it, you can invite that energy to just become absorbed on the inside of you. And it's not going to show up on the outside. But if you're open to it, you can invite it to come in through the top of your head and just kind of disperse itself within all the interior of you. And what I
Well,
want to invite you to notice is, what does that change? What does that feel like for you? What do you sense?
it's often been said those who heal by energy start at the top with a white light that shines down over you. I have a question.
Ask
When
it.
when it comes to designing or just purging feelings, art,
Yeah.
some of us overthink it.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
is it a good idea to close your eyes, grab a pen, pencil, crayon, something, and just have a piece of paper and with your eyes closed, whatever you're feeling, whatever comes to mind, whatever is coming out of you.
Yes. I love that idea, and I've actually kind of done that kind of exercise with groups and individuals because it really is freeing. It allows you to be reminded, I'm not making this for the product. I'm doing this to notice the process. And the
Yeah.
process is actually the experience of making marks on a surface, or even, using clay, making indentations in something that's malleable, or making a construction, creating form by stacking things together, attaching things to each other. You're really just allowing something to happen in front of you. And it's really what play is. When kids play, they do something to see what happens.
Hmm.
That's pretty much it. I
Never
mean,
thought of it that way. I have to think about that.
think about that. I mean, there can be structured play and games and things like that, but if you just kind of give a child a set of blocks, what they're going to do is they're going to start putting blocks next to each other or on top of each other. And then, for example, my 2-year-old grandson is going to let me get 3 or 4 blocks and no more than that before he whacks it so that it falls over. It's one of his
Right.
delights.
Right. Well, because he's doing it for free. He wants to see what happens.
Wants to see what
Interesting.
happens. That's right. What can I make happen? And he's at the stage now where he's beginning to do the building himself, which is also cool. But
I've often just had, a piece of paper and I'll sit, just grab up. My favorite is a Flair pen. I love these
ah,
pens. They're just like
yes,
old school. I've gotten, newer design, but nothing works like this. And I will just doodle with my eyes closed, but surprisingly, it turns into something. Like
Yes.
it's your mind can see what you're drawing, even though your eyes can't. And many times it's not as bad as you think it might be. It's like, wow, I didn't know, how that would even come out like that.
But actually, right, it invites your imagination to
Yeah.
start engaging. One of the things that we can do with that I've done with clients and patients is to invite them to make a scribble on the page, but not for too long, and one that's pretty big, takes up a lot of the space, and then to put it at a distance, look at it like on the floor, turn it each way so that each different side is up, and decide what it resembles most to them, and then add or take away from what's already on the page to turn it into something that even more closely resembles the thing. But it's always going to be a very loose representation of that thing. So it helps not to get too caught up in
Yes.
thinking it has to be like a photo.
I would create more artistically if I didn't get caught up in it. And I'm in a different headspace than I was years ago when I
Mhm.
did. So I should return to that and just kind of even mess around because now I don't care. In the past, I would care more.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think, if we're really doing this for ourselves and for our own well-being, we can pretty much ditch the idea that somebody's going to look at it and judge it.
right. Exactly.
That's
Well,
all. You don't have to show it to anybody. You can tear it up and throw it away as soon as you finish it. If you feel that way about it, that's up to you.
so
But
many of us keep journals. Nobody's ever going to see the
that's
journal, and
right.
it's
That's right.
essentially
Right.
doing
It's
the same thing.
private and personal art making, just like journaling is private and personal writing.
I learn a lot from you. We all do. It's almost a revelation of what's going on here, and the energy side of it as well. How do we connect with you, Barbara?
You can check out my website at Robertson Art Therapy, all spelled out, no punctuation, art Robertson Art Therapy LLC.com. That's my website. Or email me at brobertson.atr@gmail.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you over email. If you have some thoughts about, how can you kind of spruce up your own creativity, I would love to, offer a couple of thoughts on that or just have a conversation.
You open the door to creativity and also offer answers, clues, why we do what we do. And I never saw it, art in the way you view it. And it's beautiful. It's more to just making a painting. It's truly expressing what's within. Uh, and I've never
I
seen
tell
it that
you,
way.
it really has enriched my own experience of it. In college, majored in fine art, painting, did oil painting, portraits of people, and very kind of stiff and overly detailed and realistic. And it wasn't satisfying in the way that I finally have allowed myself
Mm.
to use art materials and just kind of think, well, the paint wants to come out of the tube, it wants to be part of an image. Why am I worried about not using too much? Let's go for it.
As much as I love this flare marker, this is my downfall because what is this? Precision,
Ah,
precision.
yeah.
Right? And it's not a brush with just, some color squeezed out from a tube and just expressing. Nothing wrong with the precision, but we can get caught up in that and not really express the way we want to, and we don't even know we're not doing it. There's more
That's
within.
right. That's right. We sometimes have these kind of core beliefs that what we
Yeah.
do should always be neat and precise. And there's a time and a place for neat and precise. But
Yes.
what if you opened yourself up to times and places that don't need precision? How
Yeah.
much fun would that be?
Freedom. That's what that is.
So I want to invite, I want to invite anybody with a little itch in their fingertips to pick up something to make a mark with.
Yeah.
Have some fun with it.
Have some fun with it.
Don't
You said
need a therapist.
those words were playing in my mind and you just said them. Barbara, thank you so much for being here today. Always appreciate it.
You're welcome. Looking forward to next week.
This is the Global Podcast Network. where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.